the Cold War was going on, and there was a lot of concern about Russian submarines and missiles. And so I quickly became involved in the aircrew training, combat aircrew training. And I ultimately ended up as an air crewman on an S2F aircraft. These are my wings. Okay. I earned. Yeah, I started at Sandpoint. I was always in the reserve. I joined the day before my 18th birthday, Sandpoint Naval Air Station. The Korean War was still going on then, and a lot of the classmates in the previous class out of high school had been drafted or enlisted, and so my friend Larry Stepetis and I decided we wanted to get trained. So if we were called, we would be in a unit, we'd be trained, and we could be productive and assistance to the effort. So we joined at Sandpoint Naval Air Station, the day before my 18th birthday, and immediately signed up for a boot camp, which they offered out there. And so I went to summer boot camp for the summer, and graduated from that class as a airman. I joined as a recruit, which is aviation recruit, AR. And the next rating would be aviation apprentice. And then the third rating would have been airman. And I passed through all three of those in the summer training that I took through boot camp. And it was a regular boot camp. And we had a German first class petty officer who had been in the German Navy. His name was Boats Kempfer. We all were terribly respectful of him. He was brilliant. And we became sailors to model after him, everything exactly proper. And we were motivated by his inspiration. So after that, I finished my senior year in high school, but was a weekend warrior. So on weekends, I came out and was assigned to be a mechanic repairing Second World War airplanes, which were in our hangars that the pilots were flying. And as an electrician's mate, I would replace generators and starting motors and things like that. And I really wanted to do more than that. So I went to Stryker School the very next summer, which was the summer after my senior year in high school, 3 months, and ended that summer as an AE3, a third class petty officer, electrician's mate, petty officer. And with that rank, I immediately went into training as an air crewman. The school was entirely at Sandpoint. They ran their own school, and the motivation was the Korean War and the Cold War heating up. So they were trying to get recruits out into the field and maybe into the fleet. I'm a little fuzzy on the date, but I think it's around 1922 that Sandpoint became a naval air station. And when Sandpoint had grown to the point where they wanted to land larger aircraft there, Whidbey Island came into existence, which I think was, I'm pretty clear, it was 1942. Right. Whidbey Island became the main, and still is, air station. And they flew P-2Vs, which was a larger airplane that had longer range and distance than the S2F. S2F was a carrier-based plane, could fold wings and so forth. But we did all the same kinds of things. We could drop sonobuoys to locate a submarine. My job as a radar operator, my job was to find that periscope out about 40 miles or so, and I got pretty good at it. Mine were always positive. On the horizon, my squadron that they attached me to had rotated back from Korea to be trained and refitted and then sent back. And it was an active duty squadron, and they were good. And I was trying to align myself with them, be as good as they were. And we expected to be redeployed, go on active duty and be deployed. Very early after I started my aircrew training, I was offered a flight in a P-4Y, which was the Navy version of the Liberator, except it had a single tail, and as far as I know, that's the only difference. And of course, I was just an airman at that point without any specialized training, I believe. Maybe I was, I think I was an airman. But anyway, I didn't know much about anything. And they asked me, says, we need a radio operator for this flight, and we've got all the other crewmen lined up. Do you think you want to fly as a radio operator? And I said, well, I really don't know anything about radios. And they said, well, it's easy. We'll send somebody over from the radio shop, and they'll show you how to turn it on and how to dial in some channels. So with that, I went, and he showed me how to put on some music that the pilots, he said, the pilots always like this music, and they like to listen to music while they're flying. So they can tune in, at least the station they can tune into. So I did that, and we went out and flew over the Pacific for a while, and then somebody came back and says, well, we've got ammunition for our forward turret, 50 caliber, and anybody who wants to fire it, come on up. And you had to crawl through a tunnel which went through the bomb bay to get from the back section of the airplane, which was where the radio equipment was. And it was big boxes of radio equipment in stacks in those days. So anyway, I went up and fired a burst on the 50 caliber just to see what it was like. I had already done that in boot camp. They'd taken us over the range, and we'd fired all the weapons, including the 30 caliber, 50 caliber, but I got to do it in flight. So it was a period of your training. We didn't have any targets to fire at, but at least I got the feel of the weapon and the airplane around it and the motion and all of that. I was there last night. Drove back last night. I was out at Whidbey for the tour yesterday, and then after that tour we swung by Sandpoint, and I'm a sailor, and my sailing club actually joins with the Seattle Mountaineers and teaches sailing. And I might have mentioned that when I was in San Francisco, I was recruited by the Presidio Yacht Club to be an instructor teaching sailing. So I got certified as a sailing instructor, and then taught sailing to active duty military and their families during that period of time. So I continued that teaching at the Mountaineer facility there at Sandpoint. Every day is a perfect day for sailing. 1980 to 2000, I worked for the National Park Service too, and I did programs for them, historical programs, dealing with the early history of the Presidio of San Francisco. It was a military base for 200 years, and we were the last occupiers of it. And when the Berlin Wall went down and Congress started closing military installations around the country, they decided to pass the Presidio of San Francisco on to the National Park Service. And I became a member of that planning team. There were 17 members of us selected from all over the United States to make a national park. And we included in the history and restoring the 1,400 acres, 510 historic buildings, and we preserved the history and actively set it up to be telling those stories. We've got all kinds of waysides that show the base as it appeared in different periods of time. Visitors can walk through and reconnect with that early time and see it the way it looks now. And I'd like to see that same experience happen to Sandpoint. When I was there as a planner, though, we planned on restoring Crissy Field, which was an Army field going back to the 1921, Hap Arnold. actually was an officer there, and he had much to do with starting Crissy Field. And it was then to be an artillery spotting squadrons there to aid the artillery around the bay entrance. And it became too small also. And so we, as part of the project, restored it. We took out all of the maintenance buildings that the Army had established at the east end of the field. That whole area is now an open area for people to go watch fireworks and walk along the beach and so forth. Part of that area we restored as a wetland salt marsh, which existed there before the field. And it was covered over during the Pacific Exposition for the Panama Canal in 1915, I think, for the airfield. So we took a little corner of it and restored that marsh. I'm proud I was there. I'm proud I had that I had the experiences I did. It was a growing experience for me for my later life. It helped shape me as a human being and a responsible citizen. I ended up at the Supreme Court of the United States, and I was the chief deputy clerk in the clerk's office. And I worked on projects that the Chief Justice of the United States had. And he would come into my office and knock and ask me if I was busy to talk about projects, his project. So I had an intimate relationship all the way through, and that just kind of accidentally fell in my life, that whole opportunity. Year after my first year of college, I was in the reserve, and I was invited to become one of the instructors for the boot camp for that next summer. And so I didn't have a real summer job at that point, and I needed one, and I worked my way through college and gas stations and such. So I'm always very nervous speaking. So I thought if I'm giving classes every day, I'll get over that stage fright, and it worked. So I became an instructor, went on active duty for 3 months, and a drill instructor. So I taught 2 one-hour classes, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and they had 2 platoons out there, same as they did when I was there. And so one platoon would be in class while the other one was drilling. And so we drilled them with Springfield, 1903 Springfields. And we won awards, and the base commander was so pleased with the classroom grades that our students achieved, and also we marched in Seafarer Parade. And all of the rifles were exactly at the right angle, and we taught them to do a couple of the spinning tricks and so forth. So they really looked sharp. And to reward us, he arranged for us to take a flight for a 3-day weekend over to Hawaii on one of the reserve planes. It was a 4-engine DC-4. And there was actually nobody else on the plane, and they must have had lunches in there, box lunches for 30 people. There were 3 of us. And we were having the greatest time of our life. We got about halfway, and one of the engines started smoking, caught fire, and the pilots killed it. And so it scared the pants off us, to be honest with you. And they sent a message to Hawaii to send out a plane in case we had to ditch. And we're pretty nervous there for a while, and the plane arrived. We looked out the window, it was a land plane. All it could do was really mark the spot where we went down and circle around. So we actually made it over to Hawaii, and we learned that the entire set of islands there didn't have an engine to match a propeller-driven engine that would fit on our airplane. So they had to fly one over, and mechanics from the States to put an engine on. So we were at Fort DeRussy barracks, and we had free time. So we were on the beach, and I had $50 to spend I wired my dad for another 50, but it was really a fun time. And then we flew back in the same airplane.